Okay, folks, welcome back to the show. You are with Coach Tony on Let Them Play this fine Sunday morning. All right, apparently I ruffled some feathers, and Steve from Katona has called in. He's got something to say, but we're going to hold on to Steve for a quick second because I did promise that we were going to get to some of your emails and your comments about your favorite and least favorite shows from 2010. So I'm going to get to one or two of those before we cut Steve from Katona loose, or from Steve from Dobbs Ferry. I forgot tax season. Turns out we got a note from Steve in Hastings. A lot of Steves involved in the show today. But Steve from Hastings wrote in and said, "Hey, Coach Tony, great 2010. I really liked the segments you did when you had a baseball umpire on the show addressing our questions, and then you did the same thing with a high school football coach and then with a youth soccer coach. I thought this was great. Are you going to do something for other sports soon, like basketball or hockey?" Short answer, yes. More in-depth answer, I've yet to meet a hockey guy that has me convinced that hockey is worth anything more than the 30-second rants I use on the show telling you how much I hate hockey. As long as the NHL allows fighting, youth hockey is going to suffer, and so hockey, don't hold your breath. But I will, matter of fact, in the next week or two, I'm going to try to get my hands on. There are 2 or 3 basketball refs that I really like and respect, and I am going to try to get them on the show since it's hoops season. Thank you for the email, Steve from Hastings, and hopefully we'll have a show for you coming up in the next week or two if you're a hoops fan. I think the inevitable is happening. I ruffled Steve's feathers, so I'm going to go back, apparently, to Steve from Dobbs Ferry. I can't just keep this guy on hold if he's got something to say. All right, Steve, what's up, buddy?
Anthony, I just can't. First of all, I agree with you about...
Wait, you just called me Anthony. I feel like my mom's yelling at me.
I agree with you about the hockey part, the fighting in the NHL, stupidest thing there ever was.
Okay.
Anyway, let's go back to the topic at hand. I just can't believe we're disagreeing because it's so clear to me about how stupid of a rule. I don't know what school your children go to, but let's assume the high school that they will be attending at some point now changes the rules and says, we want to be a little bit different. They hire a new principal. We want to be a little bit different. Every student has to have long hair and an earring. What are you going to do? Are you going to fight that, or are you going to say, well, that's the rule, I got to get my kid an earring and let him grow some long hair?
All right, leave it to Steve and Dobbs Ferry to actually
getting
no,
extreme here, right?
No, you're not getting extreme, because you know what? I thought the same exact thing. You guys know that my good buddy Rick Wolf has a show that he does right before mine here in New York, and he and I talked about this. And matter of fact, I talked to Doug Abrams, who is the law professor at the University of Missouri. And not because I agree with this, but I said the same, dude, I'm glad we're still thinking the same way, so we can still respectfully agree to disagree.
Oh, sure.
But I actually asked Professor Abrams from the University of Missouri, I said, what happens in this exact same scenario? The school hires a lacrosse coach, and he's an intimidating guy, and says, you want to play lacrosse on my team, we're going to scare the other team every week, so everybody, guess what? Blue Mohawks. Take her to leave it. Now, believe it or not, Steve, Doug Abrams tends to think that common sense will prevail, and I immediately said, okay, we're talking about parents and lawyers. Common sense has no place in either of these equations. But he did say precedent apparently has been set where the coach is allowed to dictate what a kid does with his hair. Now, he says, I can't imagine someone would uphold it because there is still some objectivity, or I should say subjectivity, when it comes to judges and juries, but you kind of nailed it. So first of all, let me say that a lacrosse coach or a cheerleading coach, whatever, can absolutely, at least according to law professor Doug Abrams, mandate that you do grow your hair long, or that you color it blue, which I found amazing. Now, between you and me, Steve, if my school decided that they were going to support something this ridiculous, I would have to do one of two things. I would either have to say, well, here's the blue paint, and hold your breath and blow like a Play-Doh Pumper 9. Let's see if you can grow your hair out. Or I would just have to move, because I would have to really say, do I want to live in a community where something like this is being supported? So now, would I then go get an attorney involved? You know what, Steve? I got to tell you, you're bringing up a very good point. If I had gotten an attorney involved in this, I don't think you'd have people up in arms saying this guy's out of his mind. Where I do think there are people, and we know there are people who think these parents are out of their minds for bringing a lawsuit up in this case. You can disagree with the rules, but think of it this way, Steve. The rules are the rules. And this kid and his idiot parents didn't get an attorney involved when they were asked to sign the code of conduct. They signed up They went to the tryouts knowing the rules, and now they just don't like them. And that's where I start getting a little bit pissed off. It's not about saying, I'm going to hold firm and I'm not going to go to the tryouts, or I'm going to bring my attorney to the tryouts because this rule stinks. This guy decided after the fact not to abide by the rules, and I think that's a bit of a difference. What do you think?
Again, we're going to respectfully agree to disagree. I understand about the rules part, but all this kid had to do is say it's against my religion, and he's going to win because...
Yes, he would, by the way.
Go there, but...
No, you should go there because you're all right, because that's another thing we discussed. Religion brings a whole new twist into this, but you know what? It's not his religion. And this would have just become a really ridiculous, because I don't know what religions force you to have long hair. They could have asked him to force evidence that he is a Muslim or whatever religion, makes you, hippie, whatever the religion is, it makes you grow your hair long. But give me this, throw this bone to me, Steve. The kid signed up knowing the rules and then complained after the fact. BS or no BS?
It's true. He signed up knowing the rules.
So say the words.
What, BS?
Or you're right, Coach Tony, because that's really all I care about.
You're not going to get... Listen, that part is right.
No, so in other words, what you're saying is, Coach Tony, you're right.
The rules are ridiculous, Tone.
Coach Tony, you're right.
It has nothing to do with performance. It has to do with a coach who got some crazy cockamamie image of his players that, if they dress this way and wear their hair this way, we're going to intimidate people, and got to go back to his childhood in some way, shape, or form.
In other words, Coach Tony, you're right. Cut him off.
See you later.
I just love that guy. I love that guy. We disagree, but every once in a while. But you know what? He's got the right idea going here, and I got to give him credit for that. All right, you know what? We're just going to go back to the hair thing. I still have some more of your emails about your favorite and least favorite shows, but I'm going to go back to our topic at hand, and we got a note here from AD in the Bronx, who writes in and says, "Hey, Coach Tony, my question is this," and this is a great one. No one brought this one up yet. What do the parents really expect to win from this? Let's assume the parents win their lawsuit and their son is forced to be reinstated to the team. Do you think this kid is ever going to see any real playing time? That is it in a nutshell. AD from the Bronx. Leave it to one of the Bronx boys to just step up and say, everybody shut up. Here's the real issue. Let's assume the kid wins. You spent all this money. You're back on the team. You know what that got you? A uniform and a nice warm seat on the bench. Nothing is going to change. They're not going to erect some monument at this junior high school praising the family that decided to come and file this lawsuit. The kids who want to grow their hair and burn their bras and their draft cards, they are the minority. Sorry to say it, they are the minority. AD in the Bronx, hats off to you, dude. Kudos, because you really nailed it. These idiots did nothing more than put a bigger target on their back. If the kid just begrudgingly cut his hair, this thing would have been a non-issue. And the kid would have had his spot on the team, and life goes on. And guess what? Basketball season's not that long. Grow your hair again later. My God. All right, all right, you know what? We got another defender of this family who insists on illuminating his own mental disorder. So we're going to read now the email that came in from Mark in Terrytown. And Mark writes in and says, "Hey, Coach Tony." Well, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. This guy, this is the guy who first brought up the topic that I had to address. He's the one who was asking about the reverse mohawks. You know what? Yeah, I can't even do that one again. I think it was a decent point. So, Mark, while I said you had a mental disorder, you asked about the reverse mohawks and coloring your hair or keeping it in cornrows and all that other stuff. He brought up a point that because this is a clean haircut, people are ridiculing the kid and his parents. And I think there's some truth to that. So, you know what? For the first time in history, I'm going to kind of retract my statement of mental disorder from Mark in Terrytown. If you're listening, call in. We'll get you some... Get you some tickets to the Westchester Dinner Theater or some garbage like that. But but you know what I think is important? Some of the best coaches in history didn't let their star players play without the haircut that was demanded by the coach. Now, let's face it, there are some organizations that exist today. You can talk about Tim Lincecum and all these other guys. If you play for the Yankees, and I believe this is still the case, you cannot have a beard. Right? You can have a mustache, you can't have a beard. That's it. End of story. If you play for the Cincinnati Reds, guess what? You can't have any facial hair whatsoever. Anybody remember a guy by the name of Bruce Sutter? he was the Mariano Rivera of his time. He's a guy who had a really cool mustache and beard combo, was big and scraggly and very intimidating. So he was kind of the closer back in the 80s. The original split-fingered fastball, for those of you who are really, want to know who this guy is and the impact he had on the game. So this guy was kind of the walk-on-water closer of his time. Now, I may be wrong, but I believe it was the Cincinnati Reds that he went to towards the end of his career. And he had to shave off everything. That intimidating beard-mustache combo, he had to shave it off. It's just the way the world works. If this full-grown adult wanted to collect his paycheck and reap the rewards of being part of that major league team, he had to shave. Period. Going back to the guy who thought he could say period. That's my word. Period and retard. Those are my words. No one else gets to use them. But end of story. I think this kid's parents are really missing a real opportunity to teach their kid a very different life lesson. Now, before we go to break, I want to bring up just one other point that I think was a decent point that's kind of on the other side of this argument. We'll squeeze this one in before we go to break. I got a letter here from Mike in Yonkers. And Mike says, "Hey, Coach Tony, if this kid was putting up 20 to 30 points a game along with 12 rebounds and 6 assists, the coach would bend over backwards to accommodate him. Rules be damned. Since the kid is obviously just a bench player, he just has to suck it up and play by the rules. Rules are always bent for superior talent. That's just the way it is." Now, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. I know that there are coaches who do indeed bend the rules for star players, just like Steve from Dobbs Ferry said earlier. But I also think you're making a big assumption here. If this were truly the case and it happened in that school, where, let's say, a star athlete had been given different treatment or preferential treatment on this particular point, I'm sure somebody would have come forward by now. In fact, if this were even remotely true, the school would really have no choice at all but to cave and to reinstate this kid. So my guess is this school would stand its ground. There's no reason to believe there's been any other precedent set where the star quarterback was given different treatment based on how long his hair is. And again, go back to my earlier point. There are clear examples of teams and coaches who have not caved or have changed their rules for star players. But again, I think it is a good point, and is definitely one worth bringing up. The fact of the matter is this. The coach and the administration deemed this to be a solid rule, and so that rule is in place. If you want to play, you abide by the rules, period. If the rules are so inappropriate, then fight them. But fight them before you go out for the team. This is just another case of a couple of inept parents who don't want to let their kid take accountability for his own actions. I tell you what, kid, and we're going to end the topic on this. Grow your hair, burn your bra, dodge the draft, do whatever the hell you like. But you know what? Be an adult and step up and take accountability for your actions. When we get back, we're going to get to your emails on your favorite shows and least favorite shows from 2010 and some of your suggestions for 2011. So stick around. We'll be right back.